Now the logic of the app is going to be exactly the same as tic-tac-toe or noughts and crosses, which, if you're not familiar with it, is a very simple game where you fill in a 3x3 grid with noughts and crosses with a friend, and the first person to get 3 in a row, either noughts or crosses, is the winner. I'm going to shake it up slightly though, and we're going to use counters from the game Connect 4, and we're also going to use a drop-down animation to bring the counters into the game, just to make it a little bit more interesting. So I've put together some graphics here. We've got our yellow counter, our red counter, and a simple board that I've put together. There you go. And you can download those from the project in the next lecture if you like, or you can of course download or find or make your own to make it a little bit more unique. So I definitely recommend giving this a try on your own, but it is a much bigger app than anything that we've made so far. It will be a big challenge, so don't feel bad at all if you end up watching the video. You'll learn a lot of techniques doing so as well. So best of luck, get as far as you can on your own, and then feel free to watch me putting together Connect 3. Good luck. All right, here we go then. So as usual, I'll create a new project, call it Connect 3, and get it set up. So I'm going to start by importing my images and getting the screen set up, and then we'll start working out the logic of the app and how we're going to make that all fit together. The last part will be actually working out whether someone has won. That's the particular challenge here. We have to keep up with what the players have actually done, and then each time someone goes, we're going to test to see if someone's got 3 in a row. So we'll find out exactly how to do all of that as we go along. Let's get rid of our text view and jump over to our images. So there we go, and we go into drawable and just paste those in. So I'm actually going to start by adding a grid layout. This is something we haven't used yet, but you can anticipate it might be useful for a 3x3 grid, which essentially this game is. So our grid layout allows us to choose a certain number of horizontal and vertical rows and columns to put our objects in, which is perfect for us. It's just what we want. So I'm going to set the column count on the grid layout to 3 and the row count to 3 as well. And then I'm going to select the background, and I want the background to be the board image that we just added. So there we go. That looks good. Having said that, I don't want the height to be stretched out, so I'm going to manually set the height to somewhere around 360. So now I'm going to grab an image view. This is going to be for my first counter, and you can see even though we've set the grid layout to 3x3, we've still got loads more rows and columns than we need. Don't worry about that. We'll sort that out in a minute. So you can drag that wherever you like, and then we'll just set the SRC to the red counter that we added a moment ago. There we go. It's a little bit too large at the moment, so I'm just going to make that a little bit smaller. Let's go for about 90 dps. There we go. And at the same time, I'll go into the text view, and then it's just a little bit easier to view it here. I'm going to change the row and the column of my image to be 0 and 0, which means it's going to be in the top left of our table, and then I'll manually set that again to 3x3. So we should now find that this is at the top left. Lovely. And now this is roughly right in terms of its size and positioning. So I'm going to use Command C to copy that, and then Command V, and I'm going to paste it in where I want it. So row 0, column 1. If you get that wrong, you can always paste it again in the XML. And then row 0, column 2. I can't find that, so I'm just going to pop it in there and then change it below. And in fact, I think I'll do that for all of these. So row 1. So I'm just pasting in each time here. And now it's a little bit easier to find the one that I want, except I can't find row 2. Not a problem, now I can. There we go, and in fact I should be able to just drag these around. Lovely. So the only problem is our grid layout is currently 4x4. I could change that down in the XML, but just to keep a variety in, we'll change it to 3x3. There we go. So now we've got our 3x3 grid filled with counters. Obviously the counters aren't quite in the right position. So I'm just going to manually position all of those using margins. So that first one, I think it could probably do with 10 dps on the left, probably the same on the top. And in fact, probably 10 dps all around will position it quite nicely. Then let's see what we need for the next one along. So let's see if we can get away with just putting 10 dps all around. Probably not quite on this one. We definitely need 10 dps on the top, but I think we need a bit more on the left. So let's try 20. That looks pretty good. We'll be able to see easier when we move this one along. So again, we'll definitely want 10 dps on the top, and on the left, let's try about 30 this time. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think I want this one to move slightly to the right. So let's try 25 dps, and then this one can come back slightly. So let's try 20 there. Okay, great. That one's gone a little bit too far back. So let's put 25 there too. Okay, so I like those. They might not be quite perfect, but I don't really mind. So in terms of the left margins, they're going to be the same for all of these. So 10, 25, and 10 should do the trick. So I'm just going to put those in really quickly. And then we'll deal with the heights in a minute. There we go, and down here as well. So 10, 25, and 25. Okay, now we just need to adjust the top margins. So these are going to be the same for each one in each row at least. So let's try 20, see how that looks. Yeah, I think maybe slightly more. I think that looks pretty good. So let's have 24. And then 24 in this row, 2. Lovely. And then it's probably going to be quite similar this time, slightly more, I think. Maybe even 30. Great. Lovely. Okay, you can obviously play around with those a little bit more if you like, just to make them perfectly centered, but that will do for now. Now, while we're dealing with the design, I'm going to animations in place. So what we want, obviously, we don't want these to actually appear at the beginning, but when the user taps on one of these, we want it to change to the appropriate color and then drop in from the top. So how are we going to achieve that? Well, let's write our code with this central one here in mind. So let's change the on click. And we'll call the method drop in. So this is going to be our drop in method. And as I say, we don't want this to have an image to start with. So we'll just remove the source. So it's still there. It's still got the width and height, but I can't see anything, which is how we want it. So now if we jump over to our Java file, and then we'll create our drop-in method. So as usual, public void drop-in. It's going to be called by a view, which again we'll call view, and let's import android.view.view. There we go. Now this time we are actually interested in which one the user tapped on, because that's the one that we want to bring in. So what I'm going to do is get my image view, and I'm going to call it counter, because that's what it is. And this time it's just going to be equal to view, because view is the thing that was tapped on. But of course view is a view, and we want an image view. So we need to convert that just in the same way. So this is exactly the same code that we used when we got an element by its ID, but this time we don't need to search for it because it's just the one that was tapped on, which is the one that calls the drop-in function. So we can just use view. And then if I want to drop that in, I need to do three things. I need to move it off the screen, so to the top of the screen. Then I need to apply either red or yellow to it as an image, and then I need to bring it back down again. So let's take it to the top of the screen first of all. So counter, can you remember how to do this? Translate, there it is, set translation Y, and we'll move it 1000 pixels off the top of the screen, so minus 1000 F. Then we set the image. Now I'm not certain we've done this before, so let's have a quick Google. Android set image. There we go. How to set image in image view in Android. Sounds pretty perfect. Yep, that's what we want. Ah, there we go. So set image resource. Perfect. So let's apply that. So counter.set image resource, and we want resources dot, then it was drawable, and then let's go for yellow just to keep it a little bit different. And then we want to animate it back in again. So counter dot animate, and we want translation Y by, and then 1000 as a float, and then duration, and let's keep it pretty short. We want this to be a snappy app, so about 300 milliseconds. We can always change that if it doesn't feel right. Okay, so when the user taps on a space, as far as they're concerned, an empty image, then this will get the image that they've tapped on. It will move it 1000 pixels up, so off the top of the screen. Then it will set the yellow.png image to the image view, and finally it will animate it back down. So you should get this drop down animation to it, which is gives it that different sort of flavor to noughts and crosses. It feels more like we're playing Connect 4 or something like that. So it's just a little bit interesting, and gives us a chance to use our animations as well. So let's take a look. At the moment, of course, this is only going to work on the middle one. So we've got our gap in the middle. We tap on it, and there it is. Wonderful. I like that. Feel free. You could do some rotations. In fact, a little bit of rotation sounds very easy to do, and a little bit of fun as well. So let's go for 10 spins. So then we'll get a nice kind of spin rotation animation as well, which is always a bit of fun. The more sort of flashy you can make your apps, probably the more fun they're going to be to play. Let's just have a quick look at that. Don't really notice it. So let's just quickly reduce that to a single spin. I think it might just be that 10 spins in 300 milliseconds was just too fast. If this isn't noticeable, we'll get rid of the rotation and not worry about it. There we go. I think that did add a little bit to the whole thing. I'm going to leave it there. You, of course, can play with it. You can change the size, do whatever you like. But we've got our basically functioning drop-in method now. So, unfortunately, I'll have to manually add that to each of these, but it'll probably be a bit quicker and give us an opportunity to remind ourselves about the text view if we do it there. So if we look for the middle one, it'll be the one with the drop-in function. I'm going to use Command F to find it. So drop in, there we go. So that's the only code that we need. So if we just add that to the rest, so to all the image views within the grid layout. While we're here, we also want to remove this. So let's do that at the same time. So I'm removing the SRC, so the source of the red image, so they're all going to be empty initially. And then I'm adding in the drop-in method. So you could argue it would have been more efficient to do this at the beginning, but app development doesn't always work in the most efficient way. Sometimes you have to do a bit of manual work like this. Here we go, nearly done. Great. So now let's just check that. We should find that the initial board is blank, and then we can tap on all 9 of these different squares and we'll get a yellow counter every time, which isn't perfect obviously, but it's a step in the right direction. Notice we've got our 3x3 grid displaying there as well, which is nice. So just to make sure that works, fabulous. Great. I'm really liking the animation effect. I think it does add a fair bit to the game. So now it's time to look at the logic of the game. So say we're going to allow yellows to go first, then we need to have some system to know whose go it is. So it's going to be yellows first, then reds, then yellows, then reds, etc. So let's set up something that can store that. So I'm going to create a variable up here, which will be a simple integer. And I'm going to call it active player, like that. And initially the active player is going to be 0. And I'm going to put a little note, because it's not necessarily obvious, that 0 equals yellow and 1 is red. Okay, so now we can change our drop-in method to see whose go it is. And if it's go 0, we'll change it to go number 1 and we'll have a yellow. And if it's a 1, we'll change it to a 0 and we'll drop in a red. So let's do that here. So if active player equals 0, then we want to drop in a yellow, and don't forget parentheses, and we want to set active player to 1. So that means it'll be red goes next. If that's not the case, we want to do the opposite. So we're going to drop in a red counter, and we're going to set then the active player back to 0 again. Right, so that simple bit of code should mean that we get a yellow player or a yellow counter, and then a red, and then a yellow, and then a red. Which will actually mean that the game will be broadly playable. Obviously, we're missing some fairly critical features, and we've got some strange behavior if we tested the app at the moment, but we can. So we have a yellow, and then a red, and then a yellow, and a red, etc. So the app now does work as a Connect 3 game. Our main issues are when we get 3 in a row, the app doesn't realize. So that's one major problem. We need to allow the app to tell the user when they've won, otherwise it's going to be a bit unsatisfying. And also, if the user taps on a square which is already there, they can replace it. So that actually isn't a crazy game dynamic. If you want to keep that there, then I think that could be quite an interesting way to play tic-tac-toe with replacements, but we'll have a system for stopping the user for doing that. And that's going to involve having some kind of memory for managing the game state. So at the moment, the phone has no idea which counters are where. So we need a way for storing that. And I'm going to do that with a simple array of integers. And what I'm going to do, because yellow is 0 and red is 1, I'm going to initially set this to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 twos. Like that. That should be curly brackets, sorry. And we could do with a name there as well. So I'll call it game state. And then we'll have another note, because it's definitely not obvious. 2 means unplayed. So 2 means there's nothing in that slot. And then we've got 0 to 9. So that's item 0, item 1, item 2, etc. And that's going to represent all of the squares. So starting at 0, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. Okay, so now we're going to need a way of knowing which counter has been tapped, and then we can update the game state to represent that. So let's go back over to our main activity XML file. What we're going to use to tell which one has been tapped is what's known as a tag. So if we go back to our first image in the grid layout, we can add on the XML Android tag, and I'm going to give each of these a tag, and that will represent their position, and then I can get the tag in the code, and that will tell me what the position of the user counter that's just been tapped is. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Interesting. The last one must be 8. I must have missed one out. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Brilliant. So there's all 9 with their tags. And then we can get the tag quite easily using counter.getTag. Simple as that. So for now, just to show you how it works, I'm going to convert it to a string and pop it in the console. So let's run that, and we should find then that the tag will display in the console. So we'll get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, depending on which has been tapped. And then we can use this to update our game state, and indeed to check whether that one has been tapped already, and if so, not allow any further tapping. There we go. So that was number 3, which is correct. 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 5, etc. Fantastic. So let's get our tag and convert it to an integer, which we're going to need to use it within our game state array. So let's create an integer. I'll call it tapped counter, and that's going to be counter.get tag, and then we'll convert it to a string, but we are going to want to convert that to an integer, so we use integer.parseInt as we've seen before. There we go. So now we've got our tapped counter variable, which is 0 to 8, depending on which one has been tapped. And then the first thing that we want to do with that is check to see whether that one has been already tapped on. And we can check that by checking for the game state and whether or not it's equal to 2. So if game state tapped counter, so if that is equal to 2, don't forget your parentheses, Rob, then we want to do all of that stuff plus something else. We also want to set the game state of that number to either 0 or 1, depending on who's playing. So again, we get game state tapped counter, and we're going to set that equal to, what is it? It's active player, because active player does tell us who is currently playing. So that's it. We don't need an else statement there, because we only want to do this if the game state is 2. If the game state is 0 or 1, that means the point on the board has already been tapped, so we don't want to do anything at all. So no need for an else statement that time round. So here we go. Yep, there's our yellow. Got a red, another yellow. And if we tap on an existing one, then nothing happens other than our printing to the console. Wonderful. Okay, so we're almost there. We've just got to add this last bit of game logic, which is working out whether or not the game has finished. Now, as with a lot of programming problems, there's many different ways you could do that. I'm going to use the fact that a very finite number of winning positions in tic-tac-toe. So we've got 3 horizontal lines, that could be 1, 3 vertical lines, and then 2 diagonals. So that's only 8 different combinations, so that's quite a manageable number to keep in the user's memory. So I'm going to create a variable, and it's going to be an array of arrays. So we haven't seen this before, but think of it as really a set of arrays inside an array. That's become clear as we go on. So I'll call it winning positions, and then this is going to be just a way of storing all the winning positions. So the first winning position, I'll consider the horizontal ones first. So the first winning position is going to be 0, 1, and 2. So 0, 1, 2. Like that. And then the second set of winning positions is going to be 3, 4, and 5. Like that. And I do apologize. Curly brackets all the way. Then the third winning position, if that's 3, 4, 5, is 6, 7, 8. And now let's do the verticals. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 0, 3, 6 is the first vertical winning position. And then if we add 1 to each of those, we'll get the next vertical winning position. So 1, 4, 7. And then 1 to each of those will give us 2, 5, 8. So that's all the verticals. So let's do this diagonal. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 0, 4, 8 is a winning position. And finally, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2, 4, 6 is our last winning position. There we go. So each time someone goes, we then want to do a check to see if they've won. So let's do that at the end of our code. Not that it really matters, but logically I'd like to get the counter in first and then do a check to see if anyone's won. And what I'm going to do is loop through the winning positions and just check to see if any of them in the game state have the same value. So if 0, 1, and 2, if they are all 1s, for example, that tells us that reds have won. If they're all 0s, that tells us that yellow has won. So as you may remember, we can use the for command to loop through an array, and the array that we're looping through is winning positions. Each one of those I'm going to call winning position, and then we use a colon to separate those two, and then we want to clarify that winning position itself is going to be an array of integers. There we go. So we're using the for command to loop through winning positions, and each array within winning positions is going to be called winning position, and then that's going to be an integer array. Okay, hope you're with me so far. Now we want to check whether they're all the same. That is, each of the winning position values in game state. So we want to check for game state winning position 0, and we want to see if that's going to be the same as game state winning position 1. So that's the second item in the winning position mini array. And as I think we've seen before, we use the double ampersand to represent an AND. So we want to also check that game state winning position 1 is equal to game state winning position 2. So that basically means that all three are the same, and I'm going to put those on different lines so we can see them more easily. We need to do a final check as well to make sure that, what is the final check going to check for? We're going to check that game state, could be any of them this time, so let's just pick 0, is not 2. Because if it's 2, then that means no one's gone there, so that doesn't count as a win. And I think I've missed out a square bracket there. And possibly there too. And I don't need one there. There we go. Easy to mix these things up. And I've even got too many over there. Lovely. So if that's the case, then someone has won. So let's just, for the moment, print out to the logs, to the console. I'm just going to copy that down because we don't want that one anymore anyway. So let's have game state, winning position 0. So that should print out either a 0 or a 1, depending on who has won. So this is just to check our logic and make sure that everything's working as we hope it would. And then we can display something for the user. To let them know who has won. So let's take a look and see if our logic holds true. So let's go yellow, and then yellow, and yellow. Fantastic, there we go. It's won. So we could just have a little toast popping up here, showing something to the user, saying that someone has won. But I think we could have something a little bit more grand. And we're also going to want a button to allow the user to play again, because our game is going to be so massively addictive that they'll want to play again immediately after. So what we'll do is we'll bring in a vertical linear layout, and we want it centered, but not actually in the grid layout. We want it in the relative layout, and we want to have two things in there. I want to have just a plain text view, which is going to be centered at the top, which is going to be the message saying someone has won. So I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger. Even bigger than that, I think. Great. And then we want a button to allow them to play again. And because this is a vertical linear layout, that's going to be vertically below the other button, which is great. There's not going to be any other option. The only thing they can do in this app is play again, so I don't think we need a question mark or anything like that. And I'll give it an ID of play again button, but really the main thing that's going to make the app work is adding the on click to play again. There we are. So I actually want this to appear in the middle of the screen, not at the top. So I'm going to give it a fixed width and height depending on the content. There we go. And I'm also going to give it a background color so that it stands out from the rest of the app. There we go. So I'll just go for a nice yellow. So it looks slightly horrendous, but it'll get the job done. And then I'm going to add a bit of padding all the way around. Yep, lovely. So it doesn't look beautiful, but it's fine. And then if we want to align that centrally, we could have a look at the linear layout. So this is what we've got for the layout so far. If you remember, the grid layout was centered horizontally and vertically. So we can just take the XML for that and copy it down. So I'm just going to pop it in there. And then if we have a look at that, it's now centered horizontally and vertically in the screen. So I'd like you to start getting into the habit of using both the layout view when it's easier, but also the text view when that's easier as well. Now, of course, we don't want this to appear until we're ready for it. So I'm going to initially set the alpha to 0, like that. And then we're going to need to be able to make it appear. So we're going to need an ID for it. So we'll call this play again layout. And we need an ID for the text view as well, because we're going to want to update that. So I'll call it winner message. Okay. So the main thing we need to do is make play again layout display when someone has won. So we're going to do that down here, because this is where someone has won. So making a layout appear is not something that we've ever done before. So let's have a quick Google to see if we can find out how to do it. So something like Android make layout appear. That should do the trick. So I've got a few general bits of code there. Make a layout appear with animation after button click. Sounds perfect. Okay, so this looks very promising. So we've got some code here. So we use find view by ID. Wonderful. And then we're going to change the visibility. Okay, perfect. So that's exactly what we want. Let's jump back over and pop that in. I think that means that instead of using an alpha, we'll use visibility if we're using that code. So we'll initially set it to invisible, which is pretty much the same as an alpha of 0, but it will allow us to use the code that we've just found. So again, don't be afraid to change your program slightly if you've found some code that allows you to do it in a certain way. So we're creating a layout there. We need a Android widget linear layout. So let's add that in. There we go. And our layout ID was play again layout. So let's put that in. There it is. So now we've got our layout. So let's jump back over to our code to make it appear. So we're not going to bother with any animation here. If you want to, of course, you're very welcome to. But I think this is the code that we want. So layout.setVisibility and then view visible. So as we've just got that code from the internet, I think it'd be worth just checking, making sure it all works. And then all that remains is to update the label to show who has won and to make the play again button work. Okay, let's take a look. So we'll let Reds win this time. There we go. Fantastic. So our new layout has indeed appeared. Would be quite nice if it whizzed in from the left or rotated or something like that. I'll leave that up to you. But of course our play again button, in fact, crashes the app, which is a bit worse than doing nothing, but that's fine. We haven't written the code for that yet. So firstly, let's just update the winner message so that it shows the correct winner. So it's called winner message. We want to do that before the layout appears, really. So this is a text view. So I'll call it winner message. And we're going to want to turn it into a text view, but we'll get it from find view by ID. and then resources.id.winnerMessage. There we go, and then we just want to set the text of that to and we'll keep that nice and simple. But we need to know who's won. So let's put a gap in here. And then we're going to need to do a check down here to see whether this is a 0 or a 1. So let's get rid of our logs that we don't need anymore. So if game state winning position 0 is equal to 0, that means yellow has won. So let's create a string called winner, which is, let's say by default, is equal to red, and then if game state winning position 0 is equal to 0, we'll set winner to yellow. And that's just a way of avoiding having the else code in there, which is a bit unnecessary here. And then we can use it there. So that will display the correct winner with any luck. Definitely worth checking that. And then all that we have to do is to write out our reset the board code. Makes sense to put our comment a little bit higher up there. Okay, let's take a look. So yellow, 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 yellow has won. Fantastic. I don't want to make the app crash, so I'm not going to click the play again button, but now's the time to make that work. So if we just remind ourselves, the play again button uses the play again method. So let's write that down here. Oops, public first, then void, and then play again. So there's a few things we need to do here. We need to make the message that we've just made appear disappear. So we can do that using this code. So I'm just going to copy that down. And of course, instead of visible, we want invisible. So that will make that disappear. We want to set the game state and player back to the defaults. So let's grab these and copy them down. Obviously we don't want to create the variable, we just want to update it. Now unfortunately, as much as this may seem an obvious thing to do, it's not possible because we're essentially setting the game state array to another array, which we can't do. So we have to update each item within the array separately. So we can do that with a for loop, which is good practice. So let's create our for loop. So we'll set our counter variable I initially equal to 0. We want to keep going as long as I is less than 9. Or we could put game state dot length, which might be nice. I don't really like hard coding that 9 in there, just in case the game state length changes at some point. And we want to add 1 to I each time, and then all we want to do is set game state I equal to 2. And that will then reset game state to the initial state. So the last thing we need to do is to loop through all of the images and reset them to have no source, so that they're essentially invisible. Now I'm going to show you quite a fancy way of doing that. We want essentially all of the images inside this grid layout. So if I give the grid layout an ID, I'll just call it grid layout. And then if we create a variable to match that layout, so just like this line above, we're going to use grid layout, and then I'll call it grid layout, and that's going to be a grid layout, and we're going to get it by finding it by its ID, so r.id.grid layout, and then we can loop through all of the items in there which I know are images, so they're all image views, anything inside that. So again, we can use for, and we're going to start again with an I counter variable which is initially 0, and then we want to keep going as long as I is less than the number of items. Now we know that that's 8, but if it changes at some point, we can get that from grid layout dot get child count. So that's quite handy. That tells us how many views there are inside grid layout, and we know that that's 9, but if it changes, then we won't have to update our code. And then I++, and then we want to get each of those image views, so we're going to cast them as image views, and to get them we use grid layout dot get child at, and then the index is just I. So that just gets the ith child, which is the ith image view in this case, and I want to take that whole thing, so I put brackets around it to bring it together, and we want to set the image resource. There it goes, it's as if it knew. And interestingly here, we can actually put in a 0 to set that to an empty image. So that's exactly what we want. That will reset it back to nothing. And just before we run that, I noticed that I've forgotten to put the view in there, and that will give us a crash if we try and run that, because it will be sending the button to the play again method, and if the play again method isn't ready to accept it, even if it doesn't use it, that will still crash. So this should now do everything we want. It will get rid of the message saying that yellow or whoever has won, set the active player back to yellow, reset game state, and then set all of the images within the grid layout back to 0, or back to empty essentially. Let's have a look. So there's our yellow, play again, fantastic, looking good. Brilliant. Oh, everything seems to be working fabulously. There is one issue remaining. I don't know if you've noticed it, but once this has happened, we can still carry on playing, which isn't great. So we really want the action to stop until they start playing again. So I think, as always, there's many ways that we could do that. The way I'm going to do it is have a variable that keeps track of whether the game is active or not. So we could have a Boolean this time, just for a bit of variety. So game is active, and generally that will be equal to true, but we'll set it equal to false when somebody wins. So game is active, we'll then set to false, and we'll set it to true again when the user taps to play again. And then we just need to check. So we can do it at the same place that we check for the game state being 2. We can check that game is active is true as well. And remember, we don't need to put is equal to true, we can just put and game is active. Right, so hopefully for the final time, let's run this and check and make sure that it all behaves as we would want to. So the only thing we really need to check is that you can't carry on playing the game once somebody has won. Here we go, so we'll let Reds win for a change. Red has won, fantastic, and if I try and carry on, it doesn't work. But if I click play again, then everything resets and I can start my great fun game again. Now there is one more thing that I really would like to change just before I let you go, and that is that at the moment, if we have a draw, the game just stops. To make sure I can get a draw now. There we go, and you can't do anything. So I think we need one more check to check to see if it's a draw, and if so, display the message and invite them to play again. So we'll put this code down here because we don't want it to run if someone wins on their final go. But here, so if no one has won, we want to check to see if we've had 9 goes. Now we don't have a go counter, and I don't think we need a go counter because all we need to do is loop through the game state array and check to see if everything is not 2. And if that's the case, then we've finished the game. So let's do that. Again, to loop through an array, we use for, and this is an array of integers. So int, and then I'll call it counter state. And that's each position within game state. And we want to check to see if counter state is equal to 2, because if one of them is equal to 2, then the game is not over yet. So the way I think I'm going to keep track of that is to have a temporary boolean, which is game is over, and we'll initially set it to true, and then we'll just run through all of the items in game state, and if any of them are 2, then we'll set game is over to be false. And then we want to check to see if game is over. So if game is over, then we want to do many of the things that we did before up here. So that should suffice with that line there. I don't really like repeating this code, but we're almost at the end. I don't think we need to worry about making another method for it, etc. at this point. And we'll just change the message to it's a draw. All right. So now, absolutely for the final time, I'm not going to decide that I want to inflict anything else on you. But hopefully, if you have followed through for most of this video, then you've hopefully learned a lot, quite a few new things that we've seen, or at least new ways of using things that we've already become familiar with. And hopefully you've seen what level of complexity you can get with the relatively little Android knowledge we have at the moment. We can still do quite advanced things and quite big projects. So let's have a look. Yellow, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow. It's a draw. Fantastic. And then play again, and we can play again. Brilliant. Okay, well, that was by far the biggest app we've built so far, so thank you for staying with me. We're now going to move on from images and animations